Hi, my name is John Freeman from CFRA Research, and I cover enterprise software. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the first of four what we call key trends in enterprise software. The first one being the ongoing migration to the cloud. So in this video, it's a first of a four-part series that covers the four key trends that we think really determine where growth and profitability are moving to over the next 5 years in the rapidly evolving and constantly changing software industry, right? Well, the first is the ongoing migration to the cloud, which is really, the migration of applications, the movement of applications from traditional client server deployments to cloud service providers where the application is accessed over the internet and paid for usually as a subscription. In subsequent videos, we'll be talking about digital transformation and its derivative trend, what we call the rise of meta software, and then what arguably might be the most consequential, trend in tech business or human existence, some say, right? And that's artificial intelligence. And so those are the four key trends we see in enterprise software driving growth. So cloud migration, pioneered by the likes of Salesforce and NetSuite, really focused on the small to medium-sized business market in the early 2000s. It was really enabled by the rapid improvement of performance, of internet performance and reliability that we saw following the telco crash or the telco bubble crash, telco bubble burst in 2000, 2001, and then the rapid decline in the cost of network throughput really enabled cloud computing to become economical. And by the financial crisis of 2008, larger enterprises started to move. I remember Cisco was one of the first two large enterprises to publicly adopt Salesforce.com. And so a lot of those applications like customer relationship management that were important, but not necessarily, absolutely mission critical kinds of applications like you find on the financials side, those started to move pretty rapidly to cloud computing. And one of the things though is that despite all of the hype and talk, right, about cloud computing over the last 10 years, we're still early here in this trend, and we'll show you that cloud computing, cloud subscription revenue was only about a third of total 2019 software revenue, with the rest being the traditional legacy on-prem software where sales are generated from licenses and upgrades and support contracts. At this point, you know, there's a few large enterprises that can probably justify running apps on their own, IT infrastructure, but really the vast majority really is justified now to move to the cloud. I mean, the Pentagon, right? You can't think of a more mission critical sort of situation than Pentagon applications, and they have made that move to the cloud. So at this point, we think it's really kind of hard for somebody to resist or use the excuse of security or reliability as a reason for not migrating to the cloud. So this diagram here kind of shows you what what these different cloud services are in terms of the responsibility of who's responsible for what in the software stack between the customer, the enterprise customer, and the cloud service provider, and then compare that to the traditional on-prem software architecture that you see over here on the left, where the customer is responsible for everything. They run their own IT infrastructure, the servers, data centers, all of that stuff. And then sort of the next one over is infrastructure as a service, which is pioneered by Amazon in the form of AWS, but also now, is Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud are competitors in that area as well. And what happens there is the basically it's just the infrastructural part all the way up through sort of that you get a virtual server that you access as a customer over the internet, and you pay a subscription for, and then on top of that you can do whatever you want. You can load whatever operating system you want, and you can you can do it looks and feels right as if it were an on-premise legacy situation. That was a real big boon initially, and got real initial traction for test and development and beta testing for enterprise software developers that didn't want to wait for the IT department to set up servers and all of that stuff. Platform as a service is kind of a hybrid. It's really it's the concept of infrastructure as a service, but taking also all of those operating system all the way up through the database, all of that off the table as well, and managing all of that, where the customer then just sort of applies their application logic that is specific to whatever application they want to develop that's specific to their business and so forth. Um, Microsoft Azure is a good example here. The pioneer here, though, was Salesforce with Lightning, which they initially um, then initially rolled out using their own language and so forth. But now, you can develop any database application using their Lightning service as well. And then there's software as a service, which is kind of how it all started actually, where the provider provides everything and you just access it. The only thing that you have is, as a customer, is your browser, which you access the application, and of course your data, which belongs to you. So where are we in the shift to the cloud? As I mentioned, it's amazing, but you can see here, 2019, $185 billion from cloud subscriptions, but $373 billion from legacy, license and maintenance revenue. And that doesn't flip, right? Cloud doesn't exceed 50% of revenue for the total industry until 2023, according to our projections. So the conclusion here is there's a lot of room to run for this trend. The low hanging fruit may have been picked, but we have ladders, or the trees are not that high, or whatever sort of forced metaphor you want to use here. This trend will continue to drive growth for the native cloud winners, as you can see here on the left, the companies that we cover, Salesforce, New Relic, and ServiceNow, as well as the cloud transition winners, those legacy companies that have now transitioned either 50% or close to 50% of the revenue to cloud. Then, and those companies will benefit from what we call the cloud tailwind. So that tailwind will continue on from, after they've crossed that 50% threshold. Before that 50% threshold, the transition to cloud computing is a headwind to growth. And usually you see revenue kind of flatten out. You saw it with Adobe and Autodesk and Microsoft even, previously when they went through that headwind. And now we think, Oracle really faces it. They're only got about 20, maybe about 30% of their revenue is cloud computing now. Citrix is roughly in the same area. And Constellation Software is actually even less than 10%. And so we think that's a real headwind to growth for those two companies at least over the next 3 years. So that's what we have today. Thank you very much.